Thank you guys for coming. We are live. I'm sure you guys saw the video I released earlier today. It was something that I don't usually like to do, which is talk about my past. I've talked about my mom a couple of times. I figure I should just address this at the beginning of the podcast. I've talked about my mom a few times, multiple times. And I've talked about how I feel about her shunning me and various friends and family and things like that. Usually I don't talk about that stuff, though. If you notice, I only have probably a total of 4 videos. This one may be number 5 out of 170-something, which talk about that, which talk about my family and my feelings on it and things like that. Now, this one with my dad, I felt like it was, kind of necessary to, just for completionist's sake, kind of give like a record of my history with my family, because I had done the videos Leaving Religion parts 1 and part 2, and this felt like a part 3. I didn't talk about my dad at all in parts 1 or 2. And I've pretty well avoided the guy this whole time in my YouTube career. I've pretty well avoided him, or anything relating to him. I've given a couple of mentions here or there about him, but for the most part I haven't really talked about him. So I felt like it was time. And for those of you who didn't see the video, just give a basic, real quick recap. He was pretty abusive to me when I was younger, a teenager. He's bipolar. My mom is also bipolar. But every 6 weeks or so, roughly, my dad would get into these cycles of abuse where he would... it was just physical and verbal abuse. He would just hit me or something like that, it got really ugly for a good part of my teen years. And so, anyways, I kind of detail it a little bit in the main channel video. And at the end, I mention that he is in the hospital right now. Well, we just got some updates to it. If you guys are interested in hearing about it, I assume you are. He's still not lucid. He's just completely out of his mind, not responding to commands. So if a nurse put her hand in his and said, "Can you squeeze my hand?" He's just staring into space, just lying there staring into space. Now, his limbs are moving around a little bit, like his leg will jerk or his arm will jerk or something like that. So we know he has motor control for the most part. And he's done some other things that indicate that as well. So a nurse put her hand in his, and she said, "Can you squeeze my hand?" And nothing, absolutely nothing. So he's completely out of it. They said it looks a little bit like a psychotic break, which can happen as a result of a lithium overdose, and he does take lithium. And apparently his lithium levels were a little bit high, but you have to take a lot of lithium to get a psychotic break, especially one on this level. Like, it's not a couple of pills. It's like a handful or more of lithium to get results like this. So at the moment, they're kind of treating it as like an accident, and this is basically the only lead that they have. It's not a great lead. They don't know exactly what's going on, but they're kind of just going with it. So they've stabilized his medicine now, and they're just kind of seeing where things go. They're hoping that stabilizing the medicine is going to bring him back to reality. So lithium and blood pressure medicine and metformin, and because he's diabetic, and a bunch of other stuff. So anyways, we're just kind of waiting it out, seeing where it goes. It was the 18th when he was found. He's found wandering the city aimlessly, just a complete mess. Like he hadn't used a real bathroom. He was just, walking around pissing himself and stuff. So for days, had no idea who he was or what his name was or where he lived. Couldn't even talk. He's nonverbal right now. So anyway, excuse me. I'm dealing with it. It's not, pleasant to hear that anybody is in this kind of situation. I wouldn't want to hear about my worst enemy being completely out of their mind like that, wandering around a city, a complete mess. That's sad. That's heartbreaking because we have empathy. We can put ourselves in their shoes, and we hope we never have to know what that's like. But at the same time, I don't have a great history with him, so we'll just play it by ear, one day at a time. We will see how things go. On another note, my just kind of a family update here. So Alpha Force Zero, or Kylie is her real name. Kylie's great-grandmother, a.k.a. Crate's grandmother, is in the hospital as well. She's had some issues. That happened on Friday, interestingly enough. Like, everybody's going to the hospital right now. She's had some issues, and she had to have a blood transfusion. And I told Kylie earlier that if she had been Jehovah's Witness, then she would be dead right now. So, I don't know. Something to think about. I'm just glad that she's okay, because she took me in and took care of me when I was kicked out on the street by my real family, by my blood family. She is my real family, so I have a lot more invested in her recovery than I do in my dad's or anybody else's. So, but her situation does not really seem as dire as my dad's. So we'll see. We'll see where things go. We'll see how they play out. She says she may get to go home tomorrow. That, she hates going to the hospital, and she doesn't think there's ever a need. She'll tough through it. And I mean, she's had like second-degree burns before, and she says, "Oh, I'll be fine. The blisters will go away. No big deal." So, anyways, it's been a rough week, and I have not been present on Discord as much as I would like to have been as a result of this and more that's been going on. It's really not been easy to deal with all of this, but we'll power through. We'll make it. So, anyway, so last week on the podcast, I was reading from the Bible Teach book. Kind of a clunky, shortened name for it. It's What Does the Bible Really Teach? That's the name of it. What does the Bible really teach? You don't have the answers. Catholics don't have the answers. We have the answers. Jehovah's Witnesses and nobody else. We can tell you what the Bible really teaches. So I was reading from that last week, and it was really interesting. It's interesting to see what they present to somebody who presumably knows nothing about their religion, hopefully knows nothing about their religion. And we could see just from the start that they assume they know nothing about the Bible in general. Because it had a little box at the beginning of the Bible Teach book, which was explaining how Bible books work. Like when you see 2 next to Timothy, it means it's the second letter to Timothy. It was just bizarre. Like, I don't know. I guess I can see the point. Like, in some cases, you'll come across people who know basically nothing about the Bible, or literally nothing about the Bible. I don't know. Maybe they're talking to, like, an ex-Muslim or something. So, that was an interesting little book, I thought. I mean, it is an interesting little book, but last week I was also talking to Baphomet Babe. She's one of my staff members on the Discord. And we were talking about the book of Revelation and Jehovah's Witnesses' interpretation of it, and how they come to the conclusion that the UN is evil. It's like the great beast from Revelation, right? Well, that is actually what inspired me to make the video that I did last week on Sunday. I think it was Sunday, maybe Thursday, about the UN. No, it was Thursday, not Sunday. But anyways, that is what inspired me to make that video. I decided to look it up and see what they had to say. Well, anyways, last week on the podcast, I pulled out the old Revelation book. Now, it wasn't on the screen, but I was just kind of flipping through it, and after the podcast, I set it down. I'm looking at it and reading, and it is genuinely fascinating. Oh, you know what? I downloaded the PDF for it, and I'm just now realizing that this PDF does not have any of the artwork. That disappoints me so much, because that artwork is so crazy. I remember sitting there in the Kingdom Hall, just a little kid, probably, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old, with a Revelation book in my hand, and I'm just flipping through it, looking at the pictures. I mean, somebody put so much work into this artwork. It seriously astounds me to this day, just how amazing, what an amazing job they did on that artwork. And we took a look at it last week. Let's see if we can take another look real quick. Okay, Revelation, its grand climax at hand, artwork. See if the Google machine can give us what we need. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like the pictures, just like on Google Images, don't do it justice. But it's truly amazing. Like, you've got 7 bowls in the book of Revelation. I don't really remember what those bowls are all about, but yeah, I think it's 7. I could be totally off. It could be 4, but anyway. Yeah, and they draw pictures of hands pouring the bowls out and people crying and buildings falling, and as horrific and messed up as the story is, this is some damn good artwork, really. I mean, I remember specifically in the book of Revelation, it mentions the 4 horsemen, right? And I remember when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, I was flipping through and I came across the pictures of the 4 horsemen. Now, there's one on each page, and they address what they believe the 4 horsemen to be or whatever, in the Revelation book. But let's see if we can find a picture of each of the 4 horsemen. Here we go. So one of them is on a white horse, holding an arrow, a bow and arrow. I assume that's supposed to be Jesus. I don't even know. Then there's the red one that's supposed to be war. And then you've got the dark black horse, which is supposed to be famine and pestilence, I think, disease, something like that. And then the pale white horse with the skeleton on its back and the Grim Reaper in the background, that's supposed to be death. I don't know, it's just such graphic imagery, man. And look at this picture here. What is that? What am I looking at? Somebody please tell me what this is. It looks like Nebuchadnezzar, because that's how they depict Nebuchadnezzar. Of course, you have no idea what the dude looked like. But it looks like Nebuchadnezzar's head on a horse's body with a scorpion tail and fly wings. I can't imagine a case in which this picture would be applicable. I really need to go back through the Revelation book and give it another read. But anyway, I figured we'd read a couple of chapters from this. So, or a couple of paragraphs. So this is the Revelation book, right? And this is how it works. Each chapter in the Revelation, its grand climax at hand book, a.k.a. the Revelation Climax book, each chapter addresses a different chapter of the Bible. So we've got, let's just take a quick look at this, see if I can find which. Okay, this is chapter 27, and this is addressing Revelation 12 verses 1 to 17. That's what it's addressing the vision that was seen in that chapter, in those verses. So the subject says, the heavenly woman gives birth. Michael battles with Satan and casts him to earth. And then time of fulfillment from the enthronement of Christ Jesus in 1914 up to the Great Tribulation. So they're claiming that Revelation 12, 1 through 17 is referring to the time we're in now. The time between 1914 and when the Great Tribulation hits. So I figured we'd just take a quick glance through. I was hoping to get to Revelation chapter 17. So this is Revelation 14. Let's see. Chapter 33 should be coming up. Here. Chapter 33 in the Revelation Climax book. It addresses, so here's the subject of Revelation 17, 1 through 18. Babylon the Great rides a scarlet-colored wild beast that finally turns on her and devastates her. And then time of fulfillment from 1919 to the Great Tribulation. Now here is why the year 1919 is significant. So, Charles Taze Russell, the founder, had a whole bunch of predictions and all this math that he used to try to predict the end, right? And he made just failed prediction after failed prediction. There were some in the 1800s, there were some in the early 1900s, and finally he settled on 1914. That was the date. That was the year. That's when everything was going to crumble. That's when Armageddon was going to start and everybody was going to die and all that other good stuff. So 1914 rolls around. Nothing happens. And, I'm sorry. Take a quick step back. 1913 was his original prediction. Nothing happened. So he reworks the math, pushes it forward again to 1914, saying, oh, yeah, there was no year zero. That's why. So then the math works out to 1914. 1914 rolls around. He realizes he cannot have another failed prediction because he's just going to hemorrhage people. So he tells them something did happen. Jesus came back invisibly. And he from what I've heard, the guy just walks into the room full of other Jehovah's Witnesses, well, Bible students is what they were called at the time, full of other Bible students, and says the time of the Gentiles is over. Just one day in 1914, randomly. And so anyways, a couple years later, so, they have to preserve that date. If they change that date or change things that they use to calculate that date, it's going to get ugly. They're probably going to lose a lot of people as a result, unless they do it really carefully. So a couple years pass. 1916 rolls around. October 31st, Halloween night. Charles Taze Russell dies. I just think that's a fantastic night to die. As morbid as that is. But anyway, so he dies. There's a power struggle because there were, I think it started out with a board of people. It started with a president, and then it eventually moved to a board of people who made rules and ran the whole thing. Well, they made another prediction for 1919. This one may have actually been Charles Taze Russell's before he died. They made another prediction for 1919, and of course that one failed too. When that one failed, they covered that one up by saying 1919 is the year that Jehovah picked the Watchtower Society as his organization. He perused the earth's religions and looked for the right one, and Jehovah's Witnesses matched the bill. They fit the bill, so he picked them in 1919. And now they call all the shots. So that's why in the Revelation book here, you'll see it says time of fulfillment is from 1919 to the Great Tribulation. From the day that Jehovah supposedly picked the Watchtower Society as his chosen organization to tribulation. So yeah, this one is called Judging the Infamous Harlot. That's what this chapter is called, chapter 33. It says, Jehovah's righteous anger must be poured out to completion. 7 bowls of it. Okay, it was 7. I wasn't sure if it was 7 or 4. When the 6th angel emptied his bowl at the location of ancient Babylon, it fittingly symbolized the plaguing of Babylon the Great as events moved swiftly toward the final war of Armageddon. Likely, it's the same angel that now reveals why and how likely, it's the same angel that now reveals why and how Jehovah executes his righteous judgments. John is struck with wonderment at what he next hears and sees. And one of the 7 angels, and this is quoting from Revelation 17, 1 and 2, and one of the 7 angels that had the 7 bowls came and spoke with me, saying, Come, I will show you the judgment upon the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, whereas those who inhabit the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. That's weird. I don't remember it saying that. Just out of curiosity, let's just look that up. I just want to be super extra sure that they aren't inserting something in there from their Bible, because they do that from time to time. One of the 7 angels who had 7 bowls came and said to me, Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits by many waters. With her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. Okay, I guess that is what it says. I've just learned better than to trust the Jehovah's Witnesses Bible by default. The great harlot. Why so shocking a designation? Who is she? Some have identified this symbolic harlot with ancient Rome. Some have identified this symbolic harlot with ancient Rome. Okay. That's interesting. Who are these some people to whom they refer? But Rome was a political power. This harlot commits fornication with the kings of the earth, and this evidently includes the kings of Rome. Besides, after her destruction, the kings of the earth are said to mourn her passing. Therefore, she cannot be a political power. Additionally, since she's mourned also by the world's merchants, she could not picture big business. We read, however, that by her spiritistic practice all the nations were misled. This makes it clear that the great harlot must be a worldwide religious entity. Okay, that's interesting. By her spiritistic practice. I don't know that I would count out big business. It's mourned by merchants. I mean, maybe it was a big business that helped them all out. I don't know. They're just making weird big leaps from this really bizarre friggin' chapter of the Bible, or this bizarre book of the Bible. Like, I swear the dude was on LSD. I swear he must have been. This doesn't make sense in any other context. Anyways, by the way, Crate, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you have some questions for me? I meant to take some a few minutes ago, but I kind of got wrapped up in that.
Yep. I have some.
Sweet.
Sorry, I just caught a spider.
I forgive you. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead with the questions.
All right. Well, the first couple from this week are just kind of personal things.
Okay. It's fine.
Orthodoxy on YouTube asked, do you think your dad's condition may be the result of a suicide attempt?
That's interesting because some of us had suspected that may be the case. He has had a history of doing some things along those lines. Just leave it at that. But I think it's far more likely, based on his Munchausen syndrome, that he is probably trying to get attention. Because for those of you who don't know what Munchausen syndrome is, it's basically where you have this overwhelming need to receive pity from people. Like, you need people to see you as disadvantaged. You need people to give you their sympathy. And I have actually seen that from him. It's a long record of it. I mean, I could go into detail, but it's really, really bad. And then there's Munchausen by proxy, which is a little bit less common, I think, but it's where you need somebody to feel bad for you for having to deal with somebody who's sick. And I've actually seen people, well, I've heard of people making their children sick so that people would feel sympathy for them for having to deal with a sick child. It is a mental disorder. It is a problem, especially with my dad. He has Munchausen syndrome really, really badly. So you can never tell if he's faking or if it's real. In fact, one of the first questions we asked the nurses when he got in there was, is there any possibility at all that he's faking this? And the nurses watched out for signs of that by giving him pain tests and stuff like that, like poking him with needles and things to see if they get a response of any sort. They probably would have done that anyways, but they were watching out for any signs of faking it. So the nurses seem pretty convinced he's not faking it. I mean, he did fake being handicapped for 11 years. I know that doesn't make any sense to people who haven't seen the video that I put out today, but yeah, he faked it for 11 years. So that's all part of his Munchausen syndrome. To bring it back, what is it?
I wanted to point out there,
Yeah.
It wasn't just he faked being handicapped for 11 years. It was he faked being confined completely to a wheelchair.
Yeah.
He faked not being able to walk at all.
Yeah. I mean, on occasion, he would stand up from the wheelchair and kind of hobble over to, say, the toilet. So we knew he could kind of stand up a little bit just for a minute or two, just to kind of muddle his way over to what he needed to do. He could get from one chair to another chair or from the chair to the bed or whatever, but he completely pretended for 11 years that was the limit of his abilities, and sit there and cry and whine and groan. I mean, all day. It was just crazy. I mean, the dude would go to a lot of trouble to get sympathy from people. So, anyways, I don't know that it's a suicide attempt. That's possible. I think it's probably more likely it was an attention technique, trying to get attention from people to feed the Munchausen syndrome. Anyway, next question.
Well, the next thing isn't a question yet, but
Okay.
a lot of people have said this. Baphomet specifically said, best of luck to your family, and she hopes that everything turns out for the best. If you need to talk, she's there.
Okay. I appreciate
and
that.
That's echoed a lot across a lot of people as well. So
I appreciate it, guys. That is very appreciated. I'll make it through. It's just going to take time. And usually my method of dealing with this kind of thing is throwing myself into work or something. So anyways, go ahead. What was the next one you had? Did you have more?
Yeah. QF Glenn from Discord, he wants to know if there are any good times you remember with your dad that you're willing to share.
Yeah. When my brother first moved out, my next oldest brother. So when he left, it was just me and my dad, and then my mom was at work all day, and it was summertime. I was probably, I want to say I was on the younger end. I don't think I was 11. I may have been 11, maybe 12. But he would lay in the bed in his bedroom because he was, at the very least pretending to be incapable of getting out of bed, really. He spent a lot of time in bed, reading books and stuff like that. Anyway, I'd sit in his wheelchair there next to the bed and talk to him, and we had this sticky hands, like, I don't know. It's one of those things you get out of the quarter machines that you throw it at a wall and it sticks to the wall. You pull it back. He and I would sit in that bedroom and just throw the sticky hand into the fan for like hours just to watch it just fling at the wall. And then I'd get it down and we'd do it again and talk the whole time. That only lasted for that single summer before things took a turn for the worse. So, and little did I realize at the time he was being verbally and emotionally and mentally abusive to my mom the entire time. So, anyways, it kind of cancels out all the good. Not entirely. It doesn't entirely cancel out the good. It shows me that there is good in the guy. I just haven't seen it since I was 11. So, anyway. Next question.
That's all we have from this week, but I do have a couple from last week if you want another.
Yeah, go ahead and give me a couple.
Okay. Let's see. We got another one from Baphomet, which is, what will you do if you run out of religious content?
I will never run out of religious content. You know, that thought has actually crossed my mind. I looked up how many cults there are, or classified cults at the very, like how many religions have been classified as cults. Just out of curiosity, it's around 900. So I've been doing YouTube for 2 years, or 2.5 years. I haven't focused on cults that entire time. But 2.5 years has gotten me about 100 and... I've actually made 185 videos. Now, I only have like 160 something up on YouTube now as a result of, you know, I don't know, BS copyright strikes or whatever. Some have come down, and I put them up on YouTube. Hate speech strikes and things like that. I'm sorry, I put them up on Facebook when they come down. But anyways... So 185 videos roughly over 2.5 years. I could do a new cult twice a week for how long? Years. Probably 5-10 years before I run out of cults. But you have to consider I'm still like taking side steps here. I'm still kind of addressing Jehovah's Witnesses' corruption, Mormonism's corruption, and things like that in between. It's not a new cult every week. So I really don't think I'll ever run out of religious content. But, you know, on another note, I have seen a lot of like atheist YouTubers, for example, The Amazing Atheist, kind of burn out on religious content. That was a big problem in 2016, 2017. Most of the atheist YouTubers kind of burned out on the content. Armored Skeptic, Logic, they felt like all the arguments had been addressed, and they were kind of done with it. But as that may be true, as they may have addressed most of the Christians' arguments, there are always new Christians coming in with new arguments, and there are always new atheists coming in looking at the information. There are always going to be Jehovah's Witnesses leaving their religion. There will always be, until the day the thing gets crushed completely. But if you think about it, even Heaven's Gate has 2 or 3 members left on this planet. The rest are off on some other, I don't know, Kolob maybe? I don't know. Anyway, the rest are off riding a spaceship with behind the Hale-Bopp comet. Anyways, there will always be Jehovah's Witnesses, always. Even if the organization gets completely crushed, there will still be some. So I will always have a place addressing Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, and other cult-related content. Okay, I'll take one more question. I'll try to make it quick this time.
Okay, first, .nerd is dying for me to tell you that she sends you hugs.
Oh, okay. I appreciate the hugs.
And then the last question will be, what would you do if someone twists your words and hurts someone because of it, like treating you like a god?
Right. That's interesting. People actually twist my words a lot, I've noticed. And it's usually for the worse. Like I I don't want to give any specific examples because I don't even remember any specifically at this moment, but yeah, I've had people taking some situation that's happened and completely warping it out of recognition to turn me into this horrible monster. That's happened multiple times. But really, there's nothing I can do about that, unfortunately. There's just nothing that can be done. People are going to be trolls sometimes, or people will, what's the word I'm looking for? People will over-exaggerate who I am or my accomplishments or whatever, and they will blow up a little bit what I've done and treat me in a certain way that is not warranted. I am not a god. I'm just a normal person, just like any of you. I just happened to have some experiences that hurt me to a high degree, as many of you have, and I just so happened to decide to try to do YouTube. That's the only difference between me and anybody else who's listening to this. So, anyways, yeah, you guys probably come to see that eventually as I talk to you on Discord and stuff. I'm just a normal person. There's really nothing special about me. But, yeah. Okay, well, I guess that's the last question I'll take for the moment. There is somebody wow, the podcast does not have as many people as it did last week. Interesting. So there was a person on here I wanted to speak to, and I don't actually see them on the list. They were supposed to. I actually skipped over them one week, and I was gonna get them the next week, and they weren't there, and they're on the list, but I don't see them in the podcast. So for the moment, I will speak with Planar Walk. Are you there, Planar Walk? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How's it going?
Good, yourself?
Oh, not too bad. I'm making it. So tell me, what religion were you originally? Are you still religious, or?
Well, that's a hard question because when I was a kid, we had these things called Bible in schools, right?
Right.
And when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, God's real and everything. But later on, what happened was I played the God of War series, and that kind of opened my mind to the idea of to the idea of more gods. And so I was like trying to make this sort of religion with all the different gods from all the different.
Okay, so you were trying to kind of incorporate every god into a single kind of religion. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then I sort of realized that, they're all bullshit.
Right. So you kind of moved to atheism. Is that a good assessment, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. How long ago was that? Has it been a while, or was it recent?
It was quite a while ago. Yeah, I can't remember exactly when, but there was sort of this point where I was more against religion because I realized that it could that it could be kind of damaging to society.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because there's I imagine, since you're atheist and you watch my channel, you probably have seen a lot of genetically modified skeptic or apologia or people like that who talk about anti-theism. Have you heard anything about anti-theism?
Oh, yes, I have.
It's for people who don't know, it's basically they're trying to basically take the term back to mean that they think that religion is actively harmful, is my assessment of it. And by the way, just a quick side note to you, I was sitting here talking and listening to you, and I was trying to decide if I think your accent is Australian or New Zealand, and I think that it's Australian. Is that right?
Well, funny story, I'm actually in Australia right now, but I'm from New Zealand.
Ah, damn it. Oh, it was close. Okay. Well, anyway, it was the way you said against, I think, was what made me think it was Australian. But anyway, that's cool. So how do you like it in Australia?
Oh, it's pretty nice. I've met a whole lot of new people here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've only got a few more weeks.
You're only going to be there a few more weeks?
Yeah.
But you like it there pretty well? Do you not want to go back, or?
Well, the internet is better in the internet is better in New Zealand, but over here it's a lot more sunnier.
Oh, really? Internet is better in New Zealand. That actually kind of surprises me. I would have thought it would have been it would have been better in Australia. Huh.
I thought it would have been too, but
Yeah, kind of sucks. Yeah, I found out a while. What? Say again?
I was going to say that there is something that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So recently, I found out about this this thing. I was going through Wikipedia, looking at alternate commandments,
Hmm.
and I found this thing called summons.
Like SUMMONS?
What?
Can you spell that thing that you said?
SUMMUM.
Oh, okay, I'm with you. Right.
And I'm just wondering if you had have heard of it before.
No, I haven't. I don't know if you're watching the live stream or not, but I pulled it up anyways on Wikipedia. Don't get me wrong, Wikipedia is a really, really bad source. Don't even get me started on how bad it is, but I can at least kind of get a general idea of what it is from here. But no, I have not heard of that before. It looks like something to do with philosophy. Is that right?
Yeah, it seems to be some. From what I can tell, it seems to be a Christian sort of thing, which doesn't. From what I can tell, it doesn't completely take the Bible literally, but I do like some of the 10 Commandments here because the seventh one is very, very funny to me.
Wait, is it? Let me read it out. You tell me if this is the one you're talking about. Number 7, gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all levels. Is that the one?
Yes, it is. That is the one that I find very
That
funny.
is pretty interesting. What do you think about it? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can sort of see where they're coming from, but I just find it really when you've heard about the whole Apache helicopter gender thing.
Oh, yeah.
It just
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've noticed that, like, I did a video on spirit science a while back. It was like the moon or some shit like that. And they were saying the moon is feminine and the earth is masculine or some nonsense like that. I don't even remember what it was all about, but people want to take like human characteristics and apply them to things to which they can't possibly be applied, you know? It's just
I was actually talking to someone recently who was saying about how he can see that the star signs represent him so well, and I was trying to explain that it's because of the vagueness of a lot of these characteristics that they
Right.
apply to certain star signs.
right. Yeah, I'm
And so-
sure you've probably heard this test before, but if you go into a room with a big old audience, right, and you have the horoscopes for all of the months or whatever. I don't even know how horoscopes work, but you have all of the horoscopes there, and you ask, who here is this? Who does this describe? And you read the horoscope for, say, Cancer or whatever. Then, hypothetically, 1/12 of that audience should raise their hands, right? But it's like a ridiculously high number, like everybody seems to think that the horoscopes apply to them. It's because it's so vague, you know? And it's pretty
That's
interesting.
what I was trying to. That's what I was trying to explain to him.
Yeah. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson did that test once in one of his public talks. Pretty interesting. You ever watch them, Neil deGrasse Tyson?
I do watch. I generally watch the TV shows that he's in, like Cosmos and
Right.
The Inexplicable Universe.
I don't think I've heard of that one. I was actually, I was trying to get through Cosmos, but I kind of feel like it's designed for. I don't know. There are a lot of animations in it and stuff, like cartoony stuff, and it was really hard for me to get into as a result of that, I think. But I still respect the show greatly. There's something about the dude's voice that's just like enough to put you to sleep sometimes. Like he's so fascinating, has so much to say, but the dude's voice is just like it lulls you to sleep. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I suggest people just listening to the audiobook of Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, I think it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you'd learn stuff as well as getting good night's sleep.
Yes, I actually have that. I have not read the audiobook yet, or listened to it, I mean. I have not made it through, but one of these days I really want to listen to it. It's really interesting, but anyway, yeah, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me. It's been an interesting chat, and maybe we'll talk again, okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit low on time. I wish I had more. But that's okay. Actually, I see the person here now. Are you there? It's Fish. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Hey, what's up?
Oh, not too much. I've seen you around the Discord a few times, and I actually missed you on one of the podcasts recently. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That was totally my fault. I got my days switched around, and so.
Okay, well, you're here now, and that's what's important, right?
Yeah.
So you are religious, as far as I know. Is that correct?
No, I very recently, I mean, just a couple months ago, I kind of fell away from religion in general.
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah, it was a lot of issues with just recently I've really started to try to, I guess, be more of myself and like break down my facade that I've been holding up 90% of my life.
Sure.
Like, yeah, because I was just forced into such a shitty situation as like a really young, like 4 years old.
Sure.
And I did not want to deal with that, so
right.
I just kind of blocked everything out and disconnected. And I'm just now trying to do that, and so I'm really becoming more aware of everything around me.
Well, good. I mean, it sounds like you're on the right track. So where did you come from then? What was the religion you were a part of?
Originally it was, I think, Baptist, I want to say. And like that's the main thing is I want people to know that like you don't have to be in any of these specific religions like Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormonism, like to be in a cult-like situation, because you can be in one of these less, or more moderate, relaxed groups, but depending on who the people in those groups are,
right,
the whole environment can change. And for me, those people were, or that person was my mom.
Okay, how so?
Well, it was when I was 4, my parents got divorced, and she became obsessed with bringing down my dad, just completely, sending him to prison and ruining his entire life. And me being a young child with a very malleable mind, she,
influenced you, I guess.
She kind of used my overactive imagination against me as leading me to believe the more supernatural side of Christianity. So angels, demons, having physical embodiments, and a war going on in front of our eyes and not seeing it. And like, it's just so incredibly insane to me that I would believe that now, but I truly did believe it. And so once that idea got into my mind, as long as she kept saying or alluding to my dad being a terrible person, the more easier it became for her to convince me that my dad was literally a servant of Satan.
Right. So she convinced you that demons and Satan and other supernatural beings physically existed and that they were controlling your dad. Is that a fair assessment there?
Yes.
So you don't feel like her, for lack of a better term, crucifixion of your dad was fair? Or
No, it wasn't at all. It was. She spread this terrible lie that is just unimaginable. She said unimaginable things like him molesting me on a daily basis that never happened.
Right.
And I mean, I was a young kid, so when she started early telling me that these things were happening, I didn't know what it meant.
Right.
So I believed it. And so whenever I was asked if he did, I said, yeah. I didn't know what I was saying. And it was so incredibly just
messed up.
Like, that's such a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was, like, the end result of all that? Like, did he end up going to prison? Is he out now, or what happened?
No, actually, he has full custody of me.
Oh, okay.
Thankfully, because there just wasn't any actual evidence that he had done anything to me. And so
that's good to hear, really. That's insane, man.
Yeah.
So how old are you now?
I'm 14. I'll be 15 next month.
Okay. That's good to hear, man. So is your dad religious? Did he continue kind of a religious trend, or did it kind of drop off the face of the earth there?
He kind of, like, for a while, he was less religious, more like, I guess, spiritual. He believed that there was some kind of higher power or divine being, but he wasn't glued to any religion. And more recently, he's kind of dropped completely off. And actually just in the last couple of weeks. So
wow,
I'm not sure.
A lot happening over the past few months, huh?
Oh yeah. And I mean, it's been crazy.
That is awesome. That's really good to hear, though, man, because so many times, I mean, don't let me get on my soapbox here, but I happen to know personally that, at least in my state, that the courts always favor the mother over the father, no matter what. They believe the mother over the father, no matter what. It's been a problem in my family. I've seen it with custody battles and things like that. It's really, really ugly and sad. So I'm glad to hear that things kind of worked out for the better in your situation, because it could have been a lot worse, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's really similar even here where I live. The courts are very similar, and it kind of came down to, I'm not going to lie, a little bit of, I guess, corruptness. It was more because my dad grew up in an area where it's just this huge group of kids were all like best friends, effectively brothers. They had no blood relation, but and a few of them are now higher government officials.
Right.
And the judge and other law officials related with the case knew that, and so it kind of swayed that. It wasn't, of course, he wasn't intentionally, doing that.
Right, it was just an unintentional bias kind of slipping in, right?
Yeah, and that may have completely saved me from...
Right. Well, it worked in our favor in this case. I am glad to hear that played out. Unfortunate bias got involved at all, but, the right thing happened, and there's really no good way to remove all bias. But
yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that's a really interesting story, and I appreciate you coming on and talking to me. I wish I had more time to talk, though. But I'll get you again one of these days. Does that sound okay?
Yeah. Can I just say one?
Sure.
Quick
Go ahead.
thing?
Yep.
What's really ironic to me is that, like, I have 6 brothers and sisters, and all of them on my mom's side are now atheist, and the ones on my dad's side are still moderate Christians.
That's so crazy. Sometimes it takes it takes like a religious fundamentalist to push people away from it, you know?
Yeah, like it was such an overload.
Yeah.
My mom after church wouldn't let us get out of the car and go into our house until we said something that we learned from the sermon. It was so much. Like,
Yep. I know what
I'm
you mean.
7. Get a whole lot from this dude yelling at me.
Right. I know what you mean. Like, my mom was very similar in many ways. She would do a lot of similar stuff to that. She was just completely immersed in the whole thing. There's no, I mean, oh man, I almost said her real name. It's like Jennifer Jones died and was replaced by Jennifer Jones, Jehovah's Witness, you know?
Yeah.
Or religious fundamentalist. So I totally know what you mean there. But yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to say or ask me or mention or anything?
No, not really.
All right. Well, appreciate you coming on, and we will get you on again one of these days. I know it's a little bit shorter than usual, but anyway, yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for having me in.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I do know what he means by just complete religious fundamentalist to the core, where you can't get out of the car without giving something that you learned from the sermon or whatever. I totally 100% know what that's all about. So it's disappointing to see that kind of thing. And I just about guarantee that most people on this Discord also know exactly what that's all about. And interestingly enough, they're actually memeing me in the Discord podcast text channel right now. So you guys are missing it if you're not on Discord. Come check it out. It's pretty odd, but interesting nonetheless. Crate, do you have any more questions for me? I'll take like one question. I got about 3 minutes. It's going to take another person, but I'm short on time.
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Okay. They're making me a crab.
Yeah, I told him you were a Cancer.
That makes sense.
If anybody has any more questions, feel free to go ahead and post. I'm just going through questions from last week right now. So, did the association hold anything against disabled people?
Well, that's an interesting question. It depends on what you mean. Do you mean physically disabled or mentally disabled? Because they actually have, or more accurately, not even mentally disabled, but people with mental or emotional conditions, like people with bipolar disorder, things like that. With physically disabled people, they do have a call list, basically, and it's a list of people who are physically disabled who can't make it to meetings very often. And they put the list up on the board. I mean, this is how it worked when I was in it, which is friggin' 15 years ago at this point. Anyway, they'd put the list up on the board, and service groups would go visit those people once a week. So they'd split you up into different cars. Like you'd have, say 3 or 4, maybe even 5 people in a single car. They'd take a van, and they would, that group would go visit one of the disabled people on the list. So they actually took good care of, or they put a lot of time and effort into giving attention to people who were disabled. I know because my dad was on the call list basically for like years. And they'd come over. Some of the witnesses were really, really nice people. I mean, I have nothing against Jehovah's Witnesses as people. Some of them are genuinely, honestly, really good people. And some of them would come over and they would sit with my dad and talk to him for hours, just about anything. And so, yeah, they did take care of, they gave a lot of attention to disabled people. Now, physically disabled. Now, as far as mental disorders and things like that, they do have a long history of being anti-medicine, anti-therapy, anti-vaccine, so on and so forth. They're not so much anymore. They have kind of gone in between discouraging that stuff, outright banning it, and then being okay with it at various times. But yeah, I mean, obviously both my parents had mental problems. Both of them were bipolar, and I had to deal with a lot of that. They both took a lot of medicine. They both went to therapy every week, twice a week sometimes, 3 times a week, depending on how mentally unstable they felt they were. So I don't know how it was for different congregations. I don't know how it was for different families or people, but my parents basically completely embraced therapy and the medicine that the therapists would prescribe, as long as it didn't have any blood fractions in it or wasn't derived from any blood fractions in any way, then they would take it. But anyway, yeah, it's 10 o'clock. That is 10 o'clock for me anyways. I'm in Eastern time. That's the end of the podcast. Appreciate you guys coming in, and thank you for all the well wishes with everything. It's been a very long week, a very long, hard week for me, but we're making it through one day at a time. But yeah, thanks for coming, guys.